So yeah, why do I feel like there's no opportunities for students that are middle class? Specifically like scholarship opportunities which are often need based. We often get completely left out, mind you. I live in New York, so middle class is still struggling here. You can make 100K a year and still be struggling when your rent is $3,000 a month and you have a family to take care of. Yet, if your family isn't making an annual income of 30K a year, or if you're not below the poverty line, no shade, but it's the truth. Nobody cares about you. There's no scholarships for you. You don't even qualify to apply. Mind you, I go to a CUNY and my parents don't pay for my school. I still have to take out loans to pay for my school. So what does that tell you? Yet on paper, I don't get no financial aid, no funding, no nothing. Like, it's ridiculous. And the standards needs to change, especially for New York, the most expensive place to live in the world.
I've been seeing a lot of black middle class people speaking about their suffering or speaking about their struggles. And I thought I'd bring it to you guys and see what you guys think about this. But yeah, a lot of black middle class people, it's not as good as we thought it would be, or maybe should be.
The last couple of years, I did not have vision insurance, so I would just go to Walmart and get my contact lens and regular lens appointment done. $100, real quick and easy. And this year I said, wow, I have vision insurance. You know, I can just go. I read up on the little details of what the insurance covers. Okay, I can just go in an in-network provider and then pay a little copay, and boom, I'm done. Why did I leave and end up spending $100? Mind you, I'm looking at the receipt. And I'm not really understanding intermediate exam insurance discount is $40. And the thing about it is, I'm realizing the insurance covers providers that charge more. Therefore, it comes out to the same price. Whereas if I went to the place that doesn't cover my insurance, which would be Walmart, or, my insurance doesn't cover, vice versa, you guys get it. And then it would be the same exact price because the base price would have been lower. So if you...
That is so dark. It's not funny. It's not funny at all. That is so nasty.
You guys are just going to charge a premium to offset the insurance benefit that I'm getting. This is why the middle class is always suffering.
I once heard somebody say that out of the poor, middle, and rich class, the middle class is the worst place to be. And here's why. When you're on the lower income side, there's a decent amount of support that you can get from the government, like food stamps, childcare assistance, housing assistance, utility assistance, and so much more. On the flip side, when you're wealthy, you don't need that support from the government. You can afford the best health care, enroll your kids in top-notch child cares and school, and live stress-free when it comes to paying bills. But if you're in the middle class, you're kind of on the struggle bus because you make too much for things like food stamps, childcare, utility assistance. Yet you don't make enough to be able to afford these things comfortably. It's often a constant juggling act, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's tough to catch a break.
This is how people stay living paycheck to paycheck. This is how they get you.
Plus, don't get me started on the amount of taxes that the middle class pays in comparison to the rich and the poor. I totally agree with this perspective, and if you're in the middle class, I am rooting for you to reach that rich status because the middle class grind is no joke. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree.
That's the biggest benefit of being middle class. Going from working class to middle class is an infinitely more difficult jump than going from middle class to rich. When you're working class, you have environmental factors, you have educational factors. There's so many things holding you back from becoming middle class. But once you get there, you got to play the rat race, man. You got to be in the rat race. It's a part of the system, unfortunately. But going from that to wealthy is way easier. You might not make it. Your kids might though. If you're able to set your kids up, it's going to be easier for them to do it. And that's where being in the middle class, it is just infinitely better than being working class.
And can we please normalize middle class lifestyles? Because y'all brokies always swear that y'all are bigger than the program, when most of y'all don't even have $500 to your name. Now everybody is living inside of high-rise apartments, doing Pilates, and fucking drinking matcha, whatever the hell that is. And now y'all too good to go to regular restaurants. Get a fucking personality. I'm not trying to do nothing but go out back, listen to some music, drink some Tito's, and probably throw something on the grill. That's it. Y'all are not influencers. Most of y'all are not even influential. Stop the bullshit.
Follow me here. The attack that is happening in the DC area right now is phase 2 of the attack on the black middle class. We knew that them getting rid of DEI was a direct attack on black women. I think articles have come out that said that 300,000 black women have lost their job, and the unemployment rate is, I believe, at the same level it was during COVID. Growing up in the DMV area, you knew everybody was like, yo, get you a government job, get you a government job. You set for life, get you a government job. So that was a narrative that was already put out there in the black community. Getting rid of those federal jobs was a direct hit to the black middle class, especially in the DMV area. Now, we have federal agencies in the streets of the DC area stopping and frisking black men that are minding their own business, not bothering nobody, and arresting them, and then putting their mugshots on the official X account for the White House. So we got rid of black women because we took away their jobs, right? Let's get rid of black men by randomly arresting them. Now, I don't know if all of them had priors or not, but I just can't imagine you walking on the street and you have to be nervous that somebody can snatch you up. And let's be real, a black man can be arrested for nothing and sit in jail for nothing until due justice happens. So all of this is just an attack on the black middle class, the blacks in the DMV area, which is one of the strongest black communities in this country, one of the richest black communities in this country. So if you're in the DMV right now, just, mind your P's, mind your Q's, stay out the way. But this is going to get ugly.
Poor people have community, rich people have resources, and the middle class suffers the most. One of my favorite unique facts about my life is that I have lived through 3 completely different socioeconomic classes in one lifetime. I was born in the hood. When I was 11, we moved to the suburbs, very middle class. And around my mid to late 20s, I amassed some wealth that allowed me to live an upper class lifestyle, technically a 1% for my age. And when I was a teenager, I used to haphazardly say, whenever I decide to have kids, I will make sure I move back to the hood so that my kids can have the same childhood that I had. Because I think I had one of the most blissful, happy-go-lucky childhoods ever. Now that I'm...
So you know you're young, boy. That's how you know your brain ain't fully developed. Move back to the hood. What?
older, I would never do that because I don't want my kids to have the same proximity to gangs and violence and drugs, etc. But I do want them to have that same level of community. I felt so safe because there was always a sense of belonging and an unspoken rule that everybody looks out for one another. We all help each other out. Because the truth is, those in poverty rely on interdependence to meet basic life needs. Childcare, babysitter swaps. With food, it was very common to have potluck style or buffet style dining at events, or for a close family friend to come over early and help with cooking, the cleaning, setting up the home, decor before guests arrived. Housing, very common to have multi-generational, multi-family roommate situations, and it was just very common to have any form of bartering or borrowing from one another. Conversely, the wealthy tends to outsource and pay for those community roles. Nannies for childcare, catering and chefs for gatherings. And not only do families live independently, it's very common for families to have multiple homes in multiple countries for multiple different seasons. Lake houses, summer houses, winter chateaus, etc. They even outsource emotional labor. No calling to vent to your homegirl because you've got therapy once a week and you vent to a paid professional. The only time the wealthy really collaborate or lean on one another is to advance their economic status some more. Becoming business partners, investing in large projects together, or hey, have your son come and do his internship at my company. The end goal of the collaboration is not survival, it's advancement. Now, the reason why the middle class suffers is because there is no shared code of conduct. Some people lean heavier on their community while other people lean heavier on their resources. And then there are some people who sway back and forth along the spectrum. Some people want a village but don't know how to be a villager. Some people show up for everyone's village but don't know how to ask for village support themselves. This can lead to resentment and a breakdown of communication, causing the middle class to feel the loneliest and the most confused. You've got one friend that says, hey, can you drive me to the airport? While the other friend says, couldn't she have just gotten an Uber? You've got one friend who says, hey, can I stay over at your house this weekend? They're doing renovations at mine. While the other friend says, why can't you just find somewhere else to rent, like a hotel or an Airbnb? One friend who says, hey, can you make those meatballs for my sister's birthday? And another friend says, I am not a caterer. I'm not making meatballs for 50 people. What one person sees as neighborly help, another person sees as a nuisance. Neither is inherently wrong, they're just not compatible. The middle class ranges too vastly for a common income to create coherence. In order to survive the vast middle class, you must choose connections that have a shared vision and understanding of what it means to show up for one another.
This was a really good video. She covered a lot. And this is videos like this, it's not to say, oh my God, middle class is so difficult and it's so like working class people will never understand, because let's be honest, right? Like Quavo said, call me what you want, just don't call me broke, okay? There's nothing worse than being broke. There's nothing worse than being poor. That's just a fact, right? But when you move up into the world, you're going to face different struggles. What I would say to the rich people out there, right, the wealthy people, even if you're upper middle class and maybe you're self-employed, if you care about community so much, move to a black country, move to the Caribbean, right? You can still live a very luxurious lifestyle. Again, this is if you're self-employed and you can't just do these things. You're surrounded by community. It's very peaceful. So I would do, but I lived in the Caribbean, so it's easy for me to envision myself uprooting my life and doing that.
A more invisible group of people than the South African middle class. Like, you're too rich for grants and NAFSAs, but you're too poor to actually afford the fees yourself. You are like, you get to school, your parents break their back to take you to a decent school, maybe some of these up and coming private schools or government schools in good neighborhoods. There now, on the one side, you don't relate because your parents don't have the German cars and the houses and all of that. The one side, you're told, you don't know the struggle, you don't understand. Okay, sharp, cool. Okay, as you grow up, you figure yourself out. Now you're working, you sometimes have black tax. People don't believe, how can someone like you have black tax here in Janjan? You want to relate to people, you can't. Why? Because some parents only taught you English. Not to say it's the right thing, but let's be honest, some parents think or thought English is the rite of passage. It gets you opportunities, so they taught their kids that to make sure they speak well and your surroundings. Now you're sitting somewhere else, you are left out because you don't know, you're a snob, you're a cheese person. Other side, you're probably not even good enough, you don't know half of the English dictionary words on that side. Now you get yourself into...
You know what's so sad about this? I've seen this in the UK, right? Where black people would... You know what's so sad about this? This mentality of, a proximity to whiteness is the way to go. So you're in South Africa, but you speak British only. You speak English, only because, it's the rite of passage. We've seen this mindset in the UK where you would have Africans who would come to the UK and give their kids British names. Because in their mind, it's going to be easier and they're going to be able to get jobs. And it's like, damn. Sucks.
Bulls, because going back is not an option. So I need to go and impress the people this side. You get yourself a BM, a nice house, a fancy this. People this side are not impressed. It's a way of life. So you go and you show off to the people on this side. Like, guys, and you pay tax, but you have nothing for free. And if we ignore a certain group in society for a certain amount of time, they burn out, they become frustrated. And I was like,
why do you have a nice BM and a nice house, but you ain't got money for tax after you finish tax? You see, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. A lot of this is living beyond your means or living right by your means. A lot of middle class people, they start making that money and they want to be like the upper class people. Relax. Stack up your money.
Having a conversation with someone not so long ago, and crime, like not just white collar crime, like some of these robberies that we see, it's not poor people per se. It's middle class that's burnt out and frustrated. That is now, because some people hate their jobs, but they can't quit. They don't have all these backups and whatever, and they are treated so badly in certain places. So
someone that's black, British, and middle class, one conversation which I feel like needs to be had is the fact that there are a lot of black British middle class individuals that like to cosplay as being black British and working class for a whole bunch of reasons. And I honestly feel like the first reason as to why this happens is honestly because when somebody finds out that you're black, British and middle class, I feel like people automatically associate that with, oh my goodness, this person is black, has money, this person's never been through racism, when that's honestly not the case. I think oftentimes when you're black, British and middle class...
When you say cosplaying as working class, I feel like you should go in depth with that. Because if you're middle class and you're living like you're working class, you're making smart financial decisions. Okay, that means you don't have the biggest house that you can get. You don't have the best car that you can get. Right? You've got probably a decent amount of money. You know, you're not living paycheck to paycheck because you're living below your means. Also, you know, not letting people know how much money you have, not letting people know how well you're doing, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. So, yeah.
Chances are you've probably been placed in a very predominantly white environment. So if there's anybody who's going to go through racism, it's somebody who is black, British and middle class. And I feel like a lot of black, British, middle class individuals are sort of made to feel, or people try to make them feel that they are less black or quote unquote uncultured because they don't have the black, British working class experience. When I feel that although black British culture is definitely underpinned by the black British working class experience, and that is something that should never be taken away, I do feel like, especially in today's era, the culture overall is evolving and there are many different facets to it.
Can two things not be true? You know, is having racism against you like just the black British culture? It could be a part of it. It could be a part of the experience, not the culture. You know, if you're surrounded by a bunch of white people, it's going to be very difficult for you to be in tune with blackness. So yes, you could have experienced racism, but you could also not be in tune. Two things can be true.
Pardon me, why am I stammering? Additionally to that point, I feel like the reason why a lot of black British middle class individuals are cosplaying as black British working class individuals is because, to be frank, there's a lack of representation. I'm going to be honest, there is a lack of representation. For example, in America, obviously they've got Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they've got the spin-off of Bel-Air, but in the UK, I just feel like there's not a lot of representation of black British middle class culture. I feel like when people think of, or when an outsider thinks of black British culture, they think of a lot of things within the culture which by default are black British, but some of those facets of that culture are black British and working class. But there's not a lot of awareness of the fact that even if we are a minority, which is fair enough, there's not a lot of representation of black British middle class culture either. So I feel like in the future, it would be nice if there could be representation of both sides of the spectrum.
So I was trying to find something to watch yesterday and I realised, like, I don't think the notion of a black middle class, weirdly, is something that's promoted in the UK. I think the lack of media or the lack of productions that focus on positive imagery for young black people, with males in particular, is quite dangerous. You get more of this representation perhaps in the US, and like even from the 90s, you know, you had like Will Smith, not his character per se, but in like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but the dad was a judge, the sister, you know, old money babe, Carlton was an academic, and it's like, why did they have to make him a geek? Like, couldn't they have made him cool? I know it added to like the comical bypass of the show, but I just want to watch something sometimes and feel like, do you know what, this is really inspiring.
I don't want to say you guys are doing too much, but at the same time, it's like black British people are 3% of the population. What percentage of those black British people are working class? We can just do a Google search right now. We don't have to do any guesswork. Well, I've done a quick Google search here, and I had to do multiple searches because there weren't any conclusive numbers, right? So in the UK, in order to be middle class, you have to make between 40 and 75,000, right? And it says approximately 18% of black British households earn 50 to 100, right? So you're talking about 18% of 3. It's just not relatable enough. It's not a big enough population to be promoted, and it's too small, unfortunately. I enjoyed covering this topic. What did you guys think about this? You know, we got people from South Africa, the UK, America. A lot of the issues being the same. The middle class seems to be going through a little bit of a burnout. Again, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below.
This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't let this go. This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone.